6:30, Monday, December 8th. And it's time for the Podly Weekly. The Podly on a Monday. This is what happens when results are pretty much determined and we have one of, if not the most important week of the DVFFL season upon us. So, as we know, we are about to enter tomorrow, Tuesday, December 9th, is our flex seeding ceremony for both the championship bracket and the sewer bracket. And in the past, I've always done a why you should or should not pick me episode for the top 4 seeds, and since we introduced it for the sewers, kind of a lighter version of it for the sewers. And I realized in my timing and wisdom that there's a pretty high chance that no one is going to be able to really listen to it unless they get up early in the morning. I'm a part of their morning commute, and they think about this all the way through the day. So to get the juices a-flowing, we're going to do this episode the day before. Results, for the most part, tonight should remain the same. I don't see any of our key matchups changing in any terms of seeding. So this is the risk of holding my breath, but I think it's a calculated risk because I don't think anything's going to really dramatically change. What could change is obviously a blow-up game, and if that happens, then, caveats. But for the most part, all this information should remain the same or should remain relevant for all of you. So because of that, this is truly just going to be an episode by itself. The nut report is being adjusted as we speak to its playoff form. That will be posted tomorrow morning as during the usual timing that I usually send these things out. But I don't think that having an episode early in the morning is going to get you guys enough information or enough juice flowing. So we're doing it now. And so you'll kind of get a 2-part nut report this week. A lot of the information I'm pulling is obviously pulling from the nut report itself. Like I said, it will be posted tomorrow morning, and then you'll have it there. Once we do the flex ceremony, I will adjust. You will see on the nut report when you see it in the morning that it will be the straight, number 1 seed plays 8 seed, number 2 seed plays 7 seed, number 3 plays 6 seed. Essentially, those are placeholders until we know what the final flex seeding looks like. And then once those are done, on Tuesday night, I will adjust both matchups and the nut report and then post that again for you all to see, or at least send an update that it's been updated so that you can kind of look over your matchups. But really the key points of this time between now and Tuesday evening, which is truly around 30 hours essentially, is making these good decisions. And what I love about us doing this on a Tuesday is it really, you have to pay attention at this point. And, the assumption is that the top 4 seeds in the playoffs are really on top of it. They should know their league. So this shouldn't be that hard of a decision. Too much time, you can overthink it. And, that has its pros and its cons. And but for this, we need to get the answers so we get the waivers done and everyone knows what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. So let's get to it. So this episode's a little different. It's kind of like last week where I didn't go through the nut report. There really isn't nothing to go through the nut report. I will say on the nut report level, as it stands right now, at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Monday, our seeding looks like, and this is pretty much unofficial to a certain degree, and this is incorporating tiebreakers and all that stuff, but pretty sure our seeding looks like myself as the number 1 seed, Christian's the number 2 seed, Cal's the number 3 seed, and Dylan is the number 4 seed. That loss that Dylan suffered to Alec really changed the landscape of these particular matchups quite a bit, because at one point, obviously Dylan was going to be up. Our 5 seed is Peyton. Our 6 seed is Jesse. Our 7 seed is Alec. And our 8 seed is Tanner. The only thing that's really standing out in my mind is, again, Tanner could potentially lose and not be the 8 seed if Jaden outscores him by 10.34 points. Currently, he would need to outscore him by a pretty vast margin. I think it's around, he's behind by like 26 points. So he needs to outscore Tanner by 36 points as it stands. And Tanner, of course, still has a player playing. So it's looking a little less likely there. Which segues into our 9 seed. Our 9 seed is Jaden. Our 10 seed is Mitch. Our 11 seed is Mike. Our 12 seed is Cody. Our 13 seed is Brandon, and our 14 seed is Nick. Now, there's obviously some changes here as well. If Cody gets the W, he's the 12 seed over Pate, and if Cody doesn't get the W, he falls to the 14 seed, and then Nick's the 13 seed, and then Brandon's the 12 seed. So he just kind of shuffles up a little bit. For Peyton on that end, if he loses, of course, He would be the same record as Jesse and Alec. He'd be 7-7. But I think due to tiebreakers, Peyton also has that in his bag, so he's kind of like more or less locked in. There is some nuance there that I can check, but for the most part, it's not going to push him out of the playoffs, nor is it going to push anyone else out of the playoffs. It's just a seeding adjustment. So that's the caveats for the day. The rest of this is some hard and fast facts. So let's get into it. It's a long segment today. I want to make sure that we get enough juice out of it. There's a lot of things to talk about. And the first of it really starts with, at this stage and at this juncture of the season, this is our first time that we can kind of look back a little bit at the regular season. The regular season is officially done. We have done it. It is over. There are records that have been had, that have been made. Those will be kind of recapped in our final episode for the season, which unfortunately is only like 3-4 weeks away, which let that sink in. We are 3 to 4 weeks. We're less than a month away, basically, from the end of football or this whole thing mattering. So again, enjoy every day of this because we're going to be spending more time without it than we do spend time with it. And it's coming soon. But, the regular season's over. Let's do an audit. And one of the things that often comes out around this time of year, we've already heard it a little bit, is that people will subject themselves to, some level of excuses towards injuries and stuff like that. Near this point of the season, it's your team is basically, there's a saying, it's like walking through a minefield. You're essentially walking through a minefield. Like every single week, at the stage that I'm at now, I'm like, I'm just hoping to get some of my guys just through the week. Just don't want no more injuries, no more hidden injuries. Like the injuries are obviously the worst part of fantasy football, and they just take like a lot of the joy out of it when you're like, oh, hypothetically, this team is amazing, but this happened. So, I went through a very painful process of looking through each and every team this year, week by week, and counting how many weeks a team has missed their starting players. Now, when I put starting players, there is a bit of an asterisk next to it because I want to quantify what that means. Starters, not handcuffs. So if you're talking about a handcuff or a wide receiver 4 that you may have started in a bye week and he got hurt for 3 weeks, I'm generally not counting him because you weren't really relying on him to begin with. That's an insurance play. And if the insurance play doesn't end up, bouncing, or you don't end up getting to get cash out on it, then that's how that kind of works. It's an insurance play. So I don't count those. I'm not counting players that have been on the team for like a week or two. Like let's say you pick up someone on the waiver wire and then they get hurt 1 week later and they're, and you held them for a week or two and then you dropped them. Like, I don't know if I'm counting that because they weren't really a part of the team. They need to be at least on the team for a minimum of 3 weeks before I'm starting to count those as like, oh, that was a fundamental that hurt me in my roster construction. Because again, the point of me doing this exercise is to dispel my season was lost because of injury, and that statement being an unquantifiable statement. Everyone is just like, oh yeah, injuries. Like I feel like it's such a catch-all, get out of jail free card that people just throw out there and just say, oh my God, my season got blown up by injuries, and no one's going to go out and check and see what that means because we all have experienced injuries. We all have injuries. So we're all just going to go, okay, yeah, I guess injuries took it away. And I really wanted to get to the root of like some of these teams haven't had injuries the way that they seem to have had injuries or the way they portray themselves to have injuries. So we're going to get into that. And the last thing I'm not going to count is players who are picked up that were on IR or long stints out. This is really kind of the Mike Evans and the Joe Burrow rule. Those games missed aren't going to count towards my team, nor are they going to count towards Cal's team. They're going to, he picked him up, missed a couple weeks. I'm kind of thinking like it's free money at that point. Until he plays again, that's still counting for the original owner sort of thing. So for that case, it's like Peyton and Cody are still getting some games accrued there because they kind of missed out on the opportunity. If those guys never got hurt, they would have never left the team. So until they find a new team or until they start playing again, that's kind of where they sit. That's where they rest. I feel like that's a very reasonable case on players like that. I don't think that anyone should be, IR farming, for example. Which, to that end, Tyler Bass does not count towards Mike's IRs because he never played to begin with. The other thing I will say on that note is that if someone was drafted hurt, I'm not counting the weeks that they were hurt until they play. I count the weeks after they play. If you knowingly drafted someone hurt, then you've already bought into the idea that they're hurt. I'm not going to start counting that towards you, that sort of thing. So all those qualifiers, they have to be a starter. They have to be important for your team roster construction. They have to be on the team for at least 3 weeks. They can't be, if they were picked up or if they were hurt previously and dropped, you're not getting all their hurt weeks. That still goes to the original owner. And if they were drafted hurt, those weeks don't start until they actually play a game. I feel like that's fair. These are like the real things that actually hurt you in the season, not the hypotheticals that could have helped you or hurt you because you didn't know. Like we need to, someone was playing for you, and then they were playing and they started for you, and then they suddenly weren't starting for you anymore and they were hurt. That's the weeks that we're counting. So with that said, all 14 teams have been ranked with the most games missed. And the most games missed goes to Mike. He's missed 32 games. And I will highlight some of those players that are kind of the stars of that. There's obviously players in between, the 1 week miss here and there. But, Mike lost Connor, Eckler, and Najee Harris all within 1 week of each other. And because of that, 32 games have been missed. I mean, imagine you look at Mike's team and you're like, this team feels incomplete. Well, I wonder why. He's missing his entire running back core that just literally exploded in like week 4. And ever since then, he's been kind of making it up, which I think, to put some respect on Mike's name, I think we kind of get lost in the narrative of the season. And we always look at it now and we say, oh, week 14, these teams are garbage. And we forget like the true trauma that some of these teams have gone through. And I think Mike's team is one of those teams. It's like, damn, that does suck. Like he was banking on some old running backs. That might be the first problem. But regardless, still, it sucks to have, like, what are the odds that all 3 of them are just going to go out like that? And it, like, if you play out certain different permutations of this, it's like, that could have been a great season that inevitably could have happened or not. But yeah, Mike is number 1 with the most missed games at 32. Number 2 with the most missed games is Brandon with 27 games missed. He had Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, George Kittle's missed some time. Kamara, who he just traded for, is also missing some time now. And then Kendre Miller. And it made me realize that Brandon just has a hard-on for the Saints running core. I forgot about the Kendre Miller of it all. And he was actually a viable starter for Brandon. We laugh, and he's been hurt constantly. But, yeah, Kendre Miller was a thing. And Brandon is missing it. Third on the list is Nick with 24 games missed. He's missed, obviously, Trey Benson. Brock Bowers missed some time, and Aaron Jones missed some time. This is where kind of all this started. Was Nick was like, and my injury-riddled season later. We have Brandon's lost 3 more games. Tyreek Hill, Lamar and Kittle is pretty significant. Mike's lost, 8 more games to injury than what Nick has, and he's just been holding on to Trey Benson and Bowers and everything like that. I mean, like if Connor never got hurt, then Benson isn't even a problem. So that's another thing that kind of dilutes that theory. But yeah, 24 games missed for Nick, 3rd most in the season. Tied with me. I also have 24 games missed between Amari and Hampton, Laporta out for the season, Garrett Wilson's multiple stints being out for several weeks, and then obviously Bucky Irving to start wasn't super great. So I've dealt with quite a few injuries myself. Having drafted 4 startable running backs seemed like overkill, and it seemed to be actually absolute necessity. Never forget starting Michael Carter because I literally didn't have any running backs left. Number 5 is Jesse with 23 games missed, namely Kyler Murray and Tucker Kraft. Big blows on the Tucker Kraft thing. He's still tight end 7 on the year. Let that sink in. That guy was fucking balling, and he's been gone for like 5 weeks, and he's tight end 7. Number 6 is Peyton, 22 games missed. Obviously, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, and then Schrader, who's a kicker for the Colts. I don't know if anyone was paying attention. I know Peyton was number 1 kicker up until the point that he got hurt. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, and I stopped counting the games because then he picked up Jason Myers, who's the number 1 kicker. So not a bad run for Peyton there. Jaden, 20 games missed. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, J.K. Dobbins right after trading him. Braylon Allen, another kind of forgotten man, but could have been a viable guy and wouldn't be something where Jaden would be starting Algier at the same time. But there he goes. But 20 games missed. Number 8, 16 games missed. This is Cal Scadaboo and Travis Hunter. Those 2 really eat up most of that time. For Cody, 16 games missed. Joe Burrow, Marvin Harrison. And then I guess I counted it. Golden's in there. But, Cody spent $19 on him in the draft. I assume he was a part of his starting plans. So he's missed quite a few games, and he's still on the team. So 16 games missed there for Cody. Mitch, 15 games missed. BTJ, Pacheco, Bucky Irving with his trade. Terry McLaurin is probably the biggest cause of all of these games, mostly because he's been out for the majority of the season. Then we have Christian, a playoff team here, 15 games missed. but 11 of those 15 were just Jaden Reed. The rest of them were just there, here and there sort of misses. So truly kind of like 4 games missed. So we're now entering a territory where you can kind of say these teams are pretty fucking healthy. We're the majority of the leagues in the upper 20s or, the low 20s or mostly 20. And then you get into these spaces with Christian, Jaden Reed, I guess could have been a part of his plan. It was week 2 when he got hurt and he just came back. So that's 11 games for Jaden Reed that I guess could have played a role. But yeah, 15 games missed for Christian, but with some caveats there. Tanner, 13 games missed, the majority of those being Calvin Ridley, who was garbage. But he was garbage for Tanner, and that kind of garbage starts for Tanner's team. So he was there for 13 games missed. Now, 13th in the least amount of games missed, basically second least amount of games missed. Alec, 8.5 games missed. Lamb, Godwin, and now Daniel Jones. Obviously, that number is about to increase with Daniel Jones going out for the season, but 8.5 games, and we've seen some injuries, I think, in real time more than we have seen injuries actually affect Alec's team in the long term. We've seen injuries in person during the game, but Alec has been relatively healthy, but not the healthiest. The healthiest team of the year is Dill. Dill's missed 4 games total through all of his players, and it's all Drake London. Drake London's missed, I think, 3 of those games, and I think he had like 1 random game where some other player on his team was out. But 4 total games missed for his entire squad of 16 play. 9 starters, but okay. Take away the kicker. Well, take away the defense. 8 starters. The defense can't be questionable. But yeah, that's a pretty significantly low number. 4 games. I mean, that's kind of what the equivalent of some of these players by themselves have missed alone, and Dill has been really, really healthy. So looking at these fast facts, we have Christian, Tanner, Alec, and Dill. These are all bottom 4, the least injured teams, and all those teams are playoff teams. We have 2 playoff teams in the top 5. It's myself and Jesse with 24 and 23 games missed. Both of us missing tight ends, but Jesse cleverly had another good one, and I'm still on the hunt for a good one. But that's an interesting disparity there. And I think, again, the goal of this is to kind of like really showcase that injuries in this season have been really different. I think we think of Mike's team a lot differently if he has a running core entirely, or at least one more of these guys. But he lost 3 guys in 1 week. That's pretty crazy. Brandon's team's also a little bit different. Tyreek Hill wasn't having a great season, but Tyreek Hill is still an asset. You add Tyreek Hill to, the Kittle and the Jacksons, and it just seemed like the general vibe of Brandon's team is like they're all there, the names are there, but the performance is not to be expected. It's not good. And then, Nick has been basically, you could write a movie called Waiting on Benson. It sounds like an A24 movie, but that's all Nick has been waiting for is waiting on Benson, as if Trey Benson was the big secret to Nick doing well in the first 2 weeks when Connor was healthy. Connor was playing and Benson sort of was there. Benson got 1 week by himself and then he got 5 points. Then he got hurt. And that was the end. So Benson can't be the sole reason why, nor can Aaron Jones either. But, Nick's team has been hurt, but hasn't been hurt any more than anyone else in the usual amount of hurtness that is there. I think still the most interesting fact about this whole exercise is really Dill with 4 games missed. Dill is crash landing the end of the season. What Dill's going through and crash landing your season isn't rare. We've seen this before from teams, but oftentimes it's because of the attrition of the season that has led to that team that was really hot in the beginning of the year to start to fall apart near the end of the year. And in Dill's case, it's not that. It's obviously Dill's been incredibly healthy. He's traded away players and he's participated in everything, and he's kind of avoided major injury from all of his players, which is commendable. We've seen he's got some guys that have been dinged up but never missed a game. And really what this team reminds me of, Dill's team, is really just a Brandon team. We know Brandon's signature style is to rip off 7 wins to start the season and then miss the playoffs going 7-7. And Dill is basically doing that in so many ways. If we had 2 more weeks of this season, there's a world where Dill is kind of fighting out for the 7th seed the way his team has been playing. So we are seeing the Brandon effect happening in real time, but not on Brandon's team. It's on Dill's team. Anyway, you're going to hear me talk about injuries, and it's going to be part of our indicators. It's basically these categories and things like that as we assess each team. I think it's very important for everyone to kind of have all the information all in one spot. And so I will be basically ranking out these, what I'm calling indicators of how we're assessing the teams themselves from from here's the stats, here's just what it is, and then I'll have my little spiel about each thing later. That's more of ethereal, more emotional. But just to give you all those stats. So those stats are going to be like the points per game, that they're averaging, the categories, whether they're above or below the playoff average, and how many of those categories. Spoiler alert, it's pretty gross. Their last four, especially like what they've been doing record-wise, what their highs and their lows are during that time. Injury games missed, which is something I just talked about. Top players, these are any player that falls in the top 10 according to Sleeper in their position. So I'll be naming those out. Those guys sometimes are pretty much the ones you want to avoid. Their highest finish, which shows like where they've accomplished the most in the bracket. Their best win and their worst loss. So best win is basically who's the best team they've beaten this year and what week, and what was the worst team they lost to in what week. So it's kind of a nice reveal. So let's go right into it. We're going to start from 8, 7, 6, and 5. Again, the purpose of this is for me to appeal to the top 4 seeds. That's myself, Red, Dill, and Cal in no particular order, as I did that completely out of order. And this is for you to get all this information as to who you should be picking and who you shouldn't be picking. And I'll be basically playing out the case. So the first name we have on this list is Tanner. Tanner is the number 8 seed for now. No, he's the number 8 seed. He's averaging 90 points a game. He's above the line in 2 out of 6 categories in QB and DST. He's got 13 games missed to injury, most of that being Ridley. He had 1 to Odunze, a couple from Strange, but Strange is back, Ridley is not. His last 4, he's 2-2. He has a high of 106 and a low of 70.2 over the last 4 games. His top players are Stafford at QB5, Jalen Hurts at QB6, could be higher after tonight's game. The Texans' D is at number 2, and Boswell's at kicker 5. His highest finish ever in I think this is his 3rd year in the playoffs, his round 1. He's never made it out of round 1. His best wins were against Cal in week 7, and his worst loss was against Mitch in week 3. So here's the first reason why you should pick Tanner. As you can tell from this week, and this week is a great illustrative example, Tanner is completely tilted in his roster decisions. He has I don't think we spent enough time on this, and it was a comment, and he dispelled it pretty quickly. The highest paid quarterback in DVFL history is Jalen Hurts. Just crazy amounts of money that it was spent on Jalen Hurts. And the reason why you spend all that money on Jalen Hurts is 2 things. 1, you assume he is going to be your guy for the rest of the season, and you never need to pick up another quarterback for the rest of your life. Like that, you're getting a positional advantage in the sense that is the one guy that is going to be there the entire time. He's good. Don't care about matchups. I play this man. That's all I do. That's an advantage because now you can have another playoff, another bench spot on your bench that could be a running back or a wide receiver, or whoever. So we love that. And the second point is that when games matter the most, like, clinching the playoffs, that you're just putting your studs out there and you're like, this is my fucking stud. I spent so much money on this guy. No one has ever spent more money on a QB than I have on this guy. I want this guy so badly. I'm willing to take whatever comes with that ridicule. And here we are. In week 14, we see Stafford started over Jalen Hurts. Now, this decision could be a good decision, considering Stafford is QB5. But we're in this space where you can tell just from what is happening on Tanner's roster how out of sorts this man is on his true belief in his players. Jalen Hurts is just one example. Stafford starting, whether you want to dive into any analytics as to say why this is good or why this is bad, sure, you could go into the matchups and really get into the machinations of all the stats. But like at the end of the day, simply said, it's Jalen fucking Hurts, just fresh off of a Super Bowl, rushing quarterback extraordinaire, pretty much the most sure thing you can get outside of Josh Allen in terms of throwing and rushing. And yes, it's been an ugly season, but it's still a tush push for a touchdown is still better than a 20-yard pass from a touchdown from Stafford at the end of the day. We can have that. I just don't know what the logic is that is starting Stafford over Hurts, other than pure emotional distress. And that continues into his defense. The number 2 defense on the season, the Texans, the team that has not put up lower than 9.5 all season and has played the Rams, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Broncos, the Buffalo Bills, and the Colts, was benched in a game-clinching week for the Washington Commanders. The Texans put up 16 points last night against the Chiefs. If maybe, and I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, you're benching arguably the best on paper and with your own fucking eyeballs defense. And we've seen many defenses in this league that are just like, do not fucking care who they're playing. they are game wreckers. Like they are. It's so fun to watch a defense in which you like when your player has to go against them, you're just like son of a bitch. Like it's not going to be good. Like you can actually feel the effect. I don't care what the number or what color the shading is. It doesn't matter. It's just like it's all bad. And Dill talked about this on the episode of Wilson Time about like all my goddamn players keep playing the Texans D. Well, and you see what happens. It's like it's just terrible, and that's part of the thrill of the AFC South. Like you get the Titans and you get the Texans. Like it's the dualities of man there. But to have the Commanders, arguably on eye test, one of the worst looking defenses ever. I mean, like name 2 players on that defense outside of Bobby Wagner. Like name any other player on that defense. I bet you can't. I bet people can at least name 3 or 4 players on the Texans D. That's how good that goddamn defense is. And you are playing for your playoff life, and you're like, you know what? Time to put the Commanders in against J.J. McCarthy. I can sort of see the logic, but it doesn't fucking matter. It's the Texans D. They haven't put up anything less than 9.5, and they played the Rams, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Broncos, the Buffalo Bills, and the Colts. Like, what are you fucking doing? What are you fucking doing? And I guess, really, the only way to put this in conclusion is that, like, Diz has such a respect for Patrick Mahomes and such a respect for the Chiefs. He didn't really want to offend the Chiefs by starting his defense against. He's obviously very afraid of the Chiefs, which is something that a Raider fan would be very afraid of. So he doesn't want to start his defense against them. It's just out of respect. It's respect for the champions, and that's just pathetic. If you're truly living the AFC West lifestyle and you say fuck the Chiefs at the end of every week, you can't start your defense against them? Fascinating. And then lastly, don't get me started on these goddamn wide receivers. I think it was actually a blessing for Diz to have Odunze out this week. It actually helped him make a decision because there is absolutely no logic or rhyme or reason as to when a player is in his lineup and when they're out of his lineup. Zay Flowers in this trade deadline was not a tradable asset, but he wasn't a startable asset. He was a bench asset. Now suddenly he's becoming an asset, even though he barely cracks over 10 points a game. And then suddenly this week, of course, he does something. And that's kind of the only way to explain what Tanner's wide receivers are like. It's like, and then some inexplicitly, this player did something and I benefited, or I didn't, and you lost the game. Like that's Diz's like life in the wide receiving department. And I wish I could, looking at his team from week to week, I'm like, I don't even understand the logic. Like it's not even like, oh, it's a good matchup, it's a bad matchup. It doesn't even feel like it's based off of vibes either. Like, and vibes inherently are based on the idea that like they did something good previously, so that's why I'm starting them this week. Like they did good one week, and I will follow up that week with this week. Instead, it's just like it feels like Gronk like chose like his matchups, like old information from like 3 years ago, and the AI is just like, yeah, start this guy, and Diz is like, okay, and then that's it. So one reason why you should is he's completely tilted in his roster construction, and it's at its worst, the worst time of the year to be completely confidenceless, and he has no confidence right now with what's going on in his team. Second reason why is that the wins and scoring are pretty gross. Tanner has 6 wins on the season, which is already a DVFL record for making the playoffs with 6 wins. So let that sink in first. 4 of them came against the bottom tier 3 teams. That was Nick, Brandon, Cody, and Mike. That's 4 of his 6 wins. In all of those wins, Diz never scored more than 90 points to get the W. So on top of that, Tanner only has 3 100-point games on the season, lowest of any of the playoff-bound teams. And each game, there is something to point out. In each one of those games for a 100 points game, there's always a reason you can point to say, well, that will never happen again. One of those games, Kareem Hunt got 30 carries. Kareem Hunt, 30 carries. Who would have seen that coming? Another one of those games, the Browns routed the Dolphins 31-6, and they allowed Judkins to get 3 touchdowns. The Browns getting a W, first of all, sounds crazy. The Browns routing a team and having the ability to run the ball continuously throughout the day, that just sounds crazy. That'll never happen again. And the other one, Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown. And if you don't know Kyle Pitts' touchdown history, take a look at those stats. That man never scores a touchdown. So those 3 anomalies took place to get Diz his 100-point games this season. That feels like an outlier. Now, here are some reasons why you shouldn't pick Diz if that wasn't so convincing. I might need to pull you back. Here's some cold water. Quarterbacks win championships, and Diz has 2 top 5 options. There's a lot that can be glossed over if your quarterback scoring is top-notch. It's basically, in my mind, a position and a half. You know, we're talking about if you're over the playoff line, you're averaging, the playoff line for this year is 19.06 points. So there's 3 teams that are over that playoff line for QB. It's Christian, Tanner, and myself. all of us are averaging 20 plus points. No other position by solo player is getting 20 plus points per game. Like there's obviously a running back or a wide receiver that can get there occasionally, but they're not averaging that as like their baseline as a position group. So that's a huge advantage when one solo spot is getting you 20 plus points per game. And when all the other spots can fill in, it's just a nice baseline. So it feels, like I said, it feels like a position and a half, and Diz is second in the league in scoring. The past 4 years of champions all have been in the top 5 of QB scoring. Cal last year was second. Me in 2023, I was fifth. 2022, Dill was fourth, and Jesse was first in 2021 when he won. If you don't have a top 5 QB in scoring, your chances of winning the chip are basically slim to none. Which really, if you really want to look at it, the only qualifiers essentially for that then are Christian, Tanner, myself, Peyton, and Cal. And Peyton and Cal are obviously below the playoff line there, but that's the cutoff. So those 5 teams, just by that notion alone, are qualified by our metrics of doing this. They're the ones who kind of are in that camp of like they could win a championship because these numbers indicate those are the 5 teams that are going to do it. If that's how you want to eliminate your teams, that's a team you want to avoid if you have someone who's second on that list. Another reason why is that, good matchups are going to be taking place for Tanner's team. We all know the Gare method. For years, for anyone who doesn't know the Gare method, he would have household studs like Gurley be kind of like his pillars. He'd have like 2 or 3 of these guys. These guys would be the ones that you just... Big name, doesn't matter who they're playing, they play every single time. But he would eventually, by the mid-season, or on the trade deadline, or when he was making his pickups that would just feel out of nowhere, he would sacrifice big names for guys who just had really juicy playoff schedules. And that methodology was the way to the playoffs for about 5 to 7 years in the DVFFL. It was pretty much introduced very early on. That seemed like one thing as everyone was kind of learning the game, everyone was just watching behaviors of other teams. And Gare, whether he slipped it out or you can just kind of figure it out, but we all kind of picked up on like, hey, if I have a bunch of green matchups in weeks 16 through 17 or 15 through 17 or whatever, that probably is better than the guy that is like fringe as good as that guy but has a bunch of red matchups. Then you see him win a couple times, you go to the finals a bunch of times, and then people start to emulate it. Now, I think that this has been a strategy in the past, but it hasn't really existed that long. One of the reasons why it kind of existed is because the ESPN platform sucked so bad that you couldn't see what was a good or bad matchup until the matchup actually took place. We are very much gifted with a lot of different analytics that didn't exist on ESPN when we were doing it. One of which is targets. That was not a thing. Targets were completely counted separately. Sleeper has inherently always had targets there. Now ESPN has targets, but again, where it sits in the column really frustrates me. That snap percentage is another thing that Sleeper has that ESPN doesn't. So that really gives you an indicator of like, hey, this guy got 5 points or 10 points. Was he on the field? No, he's on the field for 15% of the snaps. Like, oh, well, then he's probably just not worth picking up. Like, that is a really big indicator. And then obviously you can go to anyone's player page and you can see the matchups ahead and the colors that they are, which just is inherently just makes it easy. Green is good and red is bad. So all that to say, that strategy has slowly dipped away. However, when a team does have studs and they have great schedules, that's juicy. And Diz does. He has Hurts against the Raiders or Stafford against the Lions. Both those matchups are green, but Stafford against the Lions with a revenge game. Oh, Lions playing for their lives. Shootout. Ooh, could be fun. Chase Brown is playing the Ravens. That's a green matchup. Devonta Smith is playing the Raiders. That's a green matchup. Every matchup against the Raiders is a green matchup. And the Texans D is playing the Cardinals, which is a terrifying matchup because the Texans D is really good and the Cardinals offense is good at garbage time. So you only need like 2 or 3 of these things to tilt a matchup, and Diz has 4. So why you shouldn't is that QBs win championships, and he's got a great one, and he's got great matchups. So who should pick Diz? I'll wait for that later. Next, we have Alec. Alec, number 7 seed, averaging 93 points per game. Category, he's only 1 out of 6. He's only above the playoff line in one category. It's RBs. He has 8.5 games missed to injury. Daniel Jones, of course, is going to make that number go larger, but he's on IR. Lamb has missed about 4.5 games. Godwin missed some games after being drafted, but, et cetera, et cetera. His last 4, he's 2-2, a high of 104, a low of 76. His top players are Kyron at running back 8, Sun God at wide receiver 5, and McLaughlin at kicker 7. Sorry, I just never expected him to be that high. His highest finish was finals in 2023, where he got second place. His best win was against Red in week 9, and his worst loss was against Tanner in week 12. So pretty respectable worst loss, not going to lie. Alec, from at least my quick research on that, it didn't seem like he's lost anyone really bad, which is good. That's a good sign. So why you should pick Alec? He's picking his playoff QB in week 15. Who could have seen this Daniel Jones thing coming? I wonder if we just look back at the old Podly machine about how many times I referenced the fact that Daniel Jones should be replaced. Well, in week 7, I suggested in my first trading post segment that Alex should trade for Justin Herbert, considering he was kind of had the Quentin Johnson thing and was kind of making that work. And I felt like that might be a great QB to maybe just have in addition to Daniel Jones. I think in that version, I actually had Daniel Jones being sent away to Mike, but just a thought. Never did that. So then 3 weeks later, I suggested and really reinforced the fact, because I saw Daniel Jones' schedule and it looked like garbage, that maybe he should trade for like someone like Jalen Hurts, considering Tanner seems to be really content with maybe starting Stafford. Didn't see it until then, but then, imagine if Alec traded for Hurts, and the suggestion I think was like Sun God for Hurts or something like that. Something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure if it was Sun God or Lamb. Maybe it was Lamb for Hurts. Doesn't matter. The idea was that you would trade for Hurts because obviously Diz has 2. And again, shame on both of these Gators for not figuring this out. Because if Diz is feeling comfortable with Stafford, then, or Hurts or whoever, trade the other one to someone else. I know that it's a competition, but can you imagine the amount of money or assets he could have gotten? Talking about getting a real wide receiver 1, Alex seems to have several of those. He probably could have worked something out on that. So disappointed that didn't happen, but I suggested that in week 10. Then in week 11, I had a segment lambasting Alec for not trading for a QB, as we just started to see the buys coming in. In week 12, when said buys come in, Alec does this like fucked up 3-way QB tryout with Fields, Mariota, and Jones. And I talked about that in the Podly, saying like how fucked up that stupid tryout was, because we learned nothing out of it other than Daniel Jones is good enough. And to which Alec then in week 13 picks up Trevor Lawrence, which I thought, oh, Alex now seeing the light. Like, you just need to have some other body. That's all. At this point, the trade deadline's passed. Just get another body on the roster. Cut to week 14. Alec drops Trevor Lawrence, and Daniel Jones' season is over. Even after the news comes out that Daniel Jones has a hairline fracture in his fibula, not enough to move the needle for Alec to pick up a second QB. No. That's all good. I'm only playing in a division with the fucking Houston Texans. I wonder what could go wrong. I'm only playing the Seahawks soon. I'm only playing the Chiefs soon. I wonder what happens. Look at that. So now you're looking for a QB in week 15. Congratulations. The other reason why is he's got some really high-pressure roster decisions in addition to finding that QB. He has Kyren, Corum, Rico, Chuba, Diggs, and Vele. All 6 of these guys have started in some form or another, whether they're in the running back spots or in the flex spots in the past. And Alec needs to find 3 of them. I'm assuming that he's not going to move anything like Sun God or Lamb out of those starting positions. Those are locked in. But for these other guys, these 6 names, Kyren and Corum, Rico, Chuba, Diggs, and Vele, who's going to start week to week? Who's going to start? I mean, it seems to me that his best course of action is to double up on one of these teams. But which one? Corum seems to have cut out a role for Kyren, with the Rams, so now they look viable. We had a week like this where they both look great. Is that going to happen every week? I don't know. Same thing's happening with Rico and Chuba. And it's funny because in week 7, when the first trading post came out and then we saw Rico come to life, I said this is going to be the kind of the death of Alec, is like this decision making between Chuba and Rico. And here we are in the worst case of it. It looked like it had settled out and that Rico had won, and then suddenly we have in week 14 or week 13, Chuba comes to life in the biggest way. And now Chuba's got an expanded role. Nightmare scenario. So what is Alec going to believe? Is he going to believe the reports coming out of the bye? Chuba might be healthy, and because of that, Chuba now has a bigger role. It was his role to begin with. Rico was always brought in to be the backup. Is it now Chuba's role? Does he start one or the other? Does he start both just to do that? But then does he cut out Corum? And you're forgetting the fact that Diggs is also coming out of the bye. The team is looking fantastic. He's like one of their legitimate threats to do something. Could he be an option? I feel like the only thing I can help eliminate is Vele is not an option compared to these other guys. But Alec, what are you going to do? And you have to still figure this out. You have to still figure out your QB. You have to also probably improve your defense, which good luck out there. You have the Ravens and they're giving up and they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals this week and they got their ass kicked by the fucking Steelers. And you're still trying to figure out what your tight end position is. You've got Waller on the bench, he looks like shit. And then you got Mark Andrews, who looks like shit. So all these decisions are happening. And it's all preventable, but here we are. Why you shouldn't choose Alec. He has legit 4 stars on the squad, and if they all hit, it's really hard to beat. You saw it this week. He gets absolutely nothing from his quarterback because his quarterback gets hurt, and he still beats Dill. That's how good the team could be with the Rams backfield, Carolina backfield, Sun God, Lamb. And Lamb got hurt in that game, and so he missed like half the game. And Alec's team still pulled out a win against a playoff team that's number 4 seed right now. If Alec gets the right starter and right backfield package set up, it could be an upset alert for any top-tier team. And that's definitely something that you can't say for all the teams. Like, he has all the tools in the shed. He has to put them in the right combination. If he doesn't, it blows up in his face. If he does, it can blow up another team's hopes unless they really show up to play. The second reason why you shouldn't is Alec has always made it to the second round. His first year, he made it to round 2, finished 4th. His second year, he made it to the finals, finished 2nd. And last year, he made it to round 2 and finished 3rd. I know that no one here loves hearing experience as a concept, as a reason why someone's good. But it's a tad uncanny when a team can continue to find success over 3 separate years of time and always make it past the second round. No different than me making it to the playoffs a shit ton of times. There comes a point where you're like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to this. So that's Alec's case. Next, we have Jesse's case. 6th seed. Points per game, 93 points per game. Categories, 1 out of 6, only tight end. Tight end is a massive theme here. Injuries, he's missed 23 games to injuries, namely Kyler, namely Kraft is probably the biggest out of all of them. His last 4, he's 2-2, high of 102, low of 47, gross. His top players are Josh Jacobs at RB9, Jamar Chase at wide receiver 6. Kraft is still tight end 7, like I said, but he's off the team. And the Browns D is at 5. So it's really just Jacobs, Chase, and Browns. His highest finish, he was a champion in 2021. His best wins, he beat Red in week 12. And his worst loss is that he lost to Nick in week 1. But that was a different Nick team at that time. It literally looked completely different then. Why you should pick Jesse. His starting QBs are bad. He's 14th in QB scoring. Since losing Kyler, which of course Kyler sucks, but Jesse has started Flacco, Rodgers, Tua, Bryce Young, and now Shook. He's averaging less than 15 points per game from his QB. And that's a murderer's row of waiver wire gems. And he's a Tyrod Taylor or a Cam Ward pick away from starting the worst of the DVFL. So tough spot to be in when you lose Kyler. One of those teams, one of those things where you just kind of look back, and I know it's been a theme the last couple of months, but last couple of weeks, roster management. If the rumors about Joe Burrow's toe wasn't that bad, maybe you go out and pick up Joe Burrow for a team that has Jamar Chase and just throw him on your IR. Just what if? I wonder if I had to go and take a peek at what Jesse's IR slot is looking like. And if it's empty, that's at least better off than where we've been. Let me see. Where are you? There you are. Your IR slot is completely empty. So that is something. And I know that Joe Burrow was picked up a while ago, but it would have been wise to just put someone in their slot there. So that's something. Let's go on. Why you should. He's also had the second easiest schedule. The easiest is Brandon. Only 6 teams would be below 500 with Jesse's schedule. The league average is 8. So it's not by a lot, but he does have the second easiest schedule. When facing any teams in the top 4, he's 1-3. And his one win was against Red in week 12 and had Red shitting the bed for his lowest point total of the year. And Jesse did get 100 plus points. But, Red literally fell apart uncannily and Jesse got the W. In fact, Jesse's only wins against playoff teams were against Tanner, the 8 seed, Alec, the 7 seed, and that win against Red, the 2 seed. All the other 5 playoff teams he's lost to. So for some reason, there's something going on with this team where he's got playoff wins, but they're against other like-minded playoff teams, and he got Red on kind of a game that I think Red would argue was just a bad anomaly. That was not an indicator. That was just a bad game. But that happens. So it's hard to tell what kind of team you have with Jesse. Is like he doesn't play well against the top dogs. He plays really well against the bottom dogs, but the top dogs are picking him. So there's a reason why you should. Why you shouldn't is that Jesse can score. Jesse has the fourth most 100 plus points games with 7, one game behind Red. He's got 4 games with 110 plus. He's got 2 games with 120 plus, and he's got a game with 130 plus, despite the 13th most amount of points from his quarterback position on the year. So if, keeping that in mind, all those peripheral pieces are popping off, that shows how solid of a team that Jesse has. And he hasn't gotten much from Kyler anyway all year, so he's been making it work, even with all these shit pieces. The other thing why you shouldn't is winners and losers are in the right places. I remember when I first joined this league, not knowing really anything about the NFL, my first draft strat was to just draft players with winning teams. So it's really stupid on the surface, but it generally was kind of a decent baseline for me to kind of decide between players. If a player is on a winning team and they're a running back, chances are they're winning games and they're getting carries more often than they weren't getting carries. And if they're on a bad team wide receiver, you kind of see where like the general thing can go from here. So I think sometimes we can get a little carried away in the underlying numbers, like air yards, for example. That can make us fall in love with players that are just plainly not good, but they have opportunity. Or there's 3 players, there's a player who's gotten 10 targets, 2 of the last 3 games. We'll pick up that guy. But then there's a guy who's like on a really good passing offense, and we just won't touch him. So Jesse has a lovely roster construction of players with a mix of winners and losers, but in a loving way. His running backs, for example, are all from the NFC North, which is strange, and they're all on winning teams. Josh Jacobs on the Packers, Monty on the Lions, and Monangai on the Bears. So, in theory, all those teams do is they're going to be winning, and when they're winning, they run the ball because you're trying to kill the clock. His receivers are all fighting for a playoff position in very competitive games and often can fall behind in games. That being DK Metcalf on the Steelers, Jamar Chase on the Bengals, Pittman on the Colts, and Kincaid on the Bills. Kincaid a little less so because his team is pretty good, but nonetheless, as a tight end, he's kind of the reason why the team goes up. So for these, chances are they need as many points as humanly possible. So it doesn't even matter if they're up by 2 touchdowns. They need to keep going because that team can't hold it together. And also, all those teams outside of the Bills, maybe, all have bad defenses. And his QB, I guess it's Shook, is on a bad team, which means garbage time. You don't want a QB on a great team, though. That means, I guess you do. But like, if you're going to have a bad QB, if you're going to have a waiver wire QB, you might as well get a bad team so you can get that garbage time. As long as the QB isn't the reason, like a JJ McCarthy, for it to fall apart, you can get some garbage time. Like the Jacoby Brissett is the garbage time king. And I don't think he's a very good team, very good QB, and he's on a very bad team. Thus, you get QB1 numbers. And Jesse's kind of doing a light version of that. It's not stupid. It's just weird. But sometimes it works. And then our last team to consider is Peyton. Points per game, 98 points per game. So the most out of this group. Categories, 1 out of 6. Only in tight end. Weird. Injuries, 22 games missed. Again, Neighbors is the big one. Evans is another one. He missed 7 games when he was on the team. He's missed here and there a couple. Schrader is another one. His last 4, he's 3-1, a high of 122, a low maybe tonight. Again, I'm recording it the day before. We'll see. Top players, Drake May is QB4, Achane's RB4, Henry's tight end 6, Rams are D3, and Myers is kicker 1. Crazy. His highest finish is round 2. He's only made it to round 2. His best wins were Cal in week 2. His worst loss was Cody in week 1. So all happened in the very beginning. Why you should pick Peyton. Peyton has been in the league for 15 years. In that time, he's only made it out of the first round 2 times in his 7 playoff appearances. The last time he did make it out of the first round was 5 years ago. That's something that's quite compelling. This league oddly values history in different ways. If it's matchup history between 2 teams, it's the Bible. Look at Cal and Christian. If it's results and accolades, it can be pretty much poo-pooed off as like the what have you done for me lately excuse. In this case, I have to say, Peyton has had some pretty scary teams in the past where they've been like kind of loaded in a similar way. And this team has the same look and feel to those teams that I'm like, oh man, Peyton's kind of got it. Like I kind of like Peyton's team. He's got 5 top 10 players. And yet I would not be shocked if Peyton lost because that's just kind of what Peyton does, unfortunately, in the playoffs. I actually think the problem stems from the fact that Peyton's team often falls in the you get no choice range of flex seating. He has been third, fourth, and fifth more often than anything else. And his fate is often chosen for him based on what's left over, especially if you're third and fourth. Like, you're basically, there's no choice. You're like, here's it is. His best finish ever was in 2020. He finished third at the end of that year. He made it out of the second. Well, he made it to the second round. He lost in the second round. But the main reason why that he got so far is that he was the number 2 seed, meaning he got to choose his fate. So maybe it's just the fact that Peyton is just slightly too good to be bad, but not good enough to be great. The other reason why you should is injuries. Similar to Brandon, Pate will never fail to send a group me message at the top, way off the top rope. Haven't even heard him for 5 days, and suddenly you'll hear him come in because one of his players is going to the blue medical tent, and you'll get that update. You may never hear from him ever again, but you'll know that he's watching because he's going to let you all know that he's got a player that's injured. Fact is, Peyton has only had the 6th most injuries this year in regards to weeks missed. Neighbors and Evans really changes the juice for this team. Obviously, if those 2 guys were on the team, that would really make a huge difference. I'm sure, me saying this and pointing this out, that Peyton regrets instant dropping Mike Evans and here's, guys, I can't believe it. We're in the playoffs right now. We're like in and this is the playoff team I'm talking about. This is the number 5 seed I'm talking about right now. Do we all realize that Peyton dropped Mike Evans instantly for a broken collarbone, that Jaden Reed was going to come back to? And yes, they did say end of regular season. I hear that. But it wasn't, like, even I was reading the reports on Mike Evans, and like they're saying he could come back before the end of the year, before the playoffs. He dropped Mike Evans instantly because Peyton had to keep Marshawn Lloyd in his IR slot. Holy fuck, guys. I can't believe we come back to this again. I thought the Tyler Bass thing was dumb, but this is even dumber. We have a playoff team, the number 5 seed, that could be, in theory, if they just didn't value Marshawn Lloyd more than Mike Evans, could be adding Mike Evans to their squad next week in the playoffs, changing the tenor of this conversation about how I feel hopeful about their team. But instead, they kept Marshawn Lloyd in his IR. So let's do a thought experiment here. The Packers draft Marshawn Lloyd the same year they sign Josh Jacobs. Do we think the Packers, when Lloyd is healthy, is going to make Lloyd the starter over Josh Jacobs? The obvious answer is no. Do we think that he, when healthy, would become the backup over Emmanuel Wilson, who has been really great this year? Well, I think the answer to that is no, because Emmanuel Wilson is, first of all, playing and is good. And then, so maybe we can find another role for, healthy Marshawn Lloyd. Do we think that keeping him could then give him a role as like maybe the pass catching back? Nope, that's not what he's good at. He's a bruiser. He's just doesn't catch the ball like that. So what the fuck are we doing with Marshawn Lloyd on the goddamn team? He doesn't have a role, doesn't have a path to the starter, he doesn't have a path to being a backup, doesn't have a path to being a third down back. He has no path to playing time. And let's address the elephant in the room. He doesn't play. He's played 1 healthy game in his career over 2 fucking years. And in that game, he got hurt. He went for 6 rushes for 15 yards. That's 2 yards per carry. And we're talking about keeping him over Mike Evans for what? Keeper value of $2 next year? Who are you guys? What are we fucking doing? You guys are just playing yourselves out of chances of having a chance at the championship to have a meme in your IR. I'll happily play Mike Evans in the playoffs for my 2 fab, while Peyton is collecting meme coins of Marshawn Lloyd in his IR slot that he's held since he drafted him, and he drafted him this year. Has not moved from his IR slot the entire fucking year. Meanwhile, loses the chance on all these different players, let alone the micro weeks where you have a player out for a week and you can pick up another player to replace him. No, got to keep Marshawn Lloyd. He could be a good keeper, even though his path to playing is literally impossible, considering the biggest thing, he can't play because he's hurt. Insane. So thank you for Mike Evans, Mike Pate. That was very noble of you to drop him for me. Why you shouldn't, after all that, why you shouldn't pick Pate. He's the only team in the bottom 4 that has a winning record over the last 4 He's 3-1 going to the last 4 weeks. He's got 3 100-plus games over the last 5 games. That's the same total that Diz has for 14 weeks. Again, Diz only has 300-point games for the entire season. Outside of myself, Red, and Cal, Pate is tied with Cody for the most 100-point games over the past 5 weeks. So Peyton is generally pretty hot. Cody's also a pretty hot team. Myself, Red, and Cal have been cooking. So you want to avoid as many of those opponents as you can as possible, and Peyton is one of those teams you should definitely avoid. He also, reason number 2, has more star power than any other teams down here. His categories are also very deceiving. I said he's 1 out of 6, and he's only there on tight end. But it's very, very, you have to look into the numbers. He's 2 points below the QB playoff average with Drake May. He's 2 points below the running back playoff average with Achane. He's 2 points below the kicking playoff average with Myers. Myers is the number 1 kicker. So it's a very deceptive, but he's actually I would consider looking at him as an option. He's, in my book, 4 categories above the line because he's just 2 points. We're talking like 2 points off of these things. That's pretty insane. So that's a team I really don't want to mess with, and it's one of those things where you have to remember, you can see the numbers, but you have to also see the context of where they fall. Sometimes seeing the playoff line and looking at it just what's above is something, but like how close is everyone else to it from there? So we've gone through the 4 teams. We have given our reasons for Tanner. We've given our reasons for Alec, Jesse, and Pate. All very frustrating, all very valid as far as I'm concerned. Who is going to pick who? So here's the drum roll. Let's start from the back. Dill, I think it's inevitable. Dill, you're left with no choice. You're going to be picking Pate. You're going to be getting Pate. Pate, here's my message to you. The Rusty Truck is averaging 76 points per game over the last 4. What a fucking playoff squad you're facing. So, Pate, you could probably get to the second round if you've got Dill lined up. So that looks like that might be the case. The next case, Cal, number 3, again, he doesn't have a choice. He'd be theoretically picking between 2, and I think that choice for him is going to be Jesse. He's going to be kind of left with Jesse, but Jesse, I think, is looking at the QB ranks and is licking his lips at the opportunity, the fact that it's Tyler Shuck or whoever. Also, Cal has like kind of the perfect kryptonite for Jesse. Cal can kind of mitigate what Chase can do because he has Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. Sometimes it's like a really nice way to soften the blow of any enemy wide receiver, and Jamar Chase is obviously one of the scariest wide receivers to have to face. So Cal can kind of mitigate that quite a bit. Second team on this list is Red, and who do I think he's going to take? Well, it's whoever I left for him, and I think that's going to be Diz. Unofficially, but Diz, I think Red ends up with you. There's so much juice, honestly. From entertainment purposes alone, I feel like I have to make this choice because it's such a funny-ass matchup. Red is facing down the 2 keys to his final runs last year with like Hurts and Devonta Smith. Diz has a reason to get up for this game. Red just needs to pray that Diz continues to make stupid lineup decisions so he can easily get past him. But if he does, if Diz kind of puts it all together, it actually could be quite a challenge. Which leaves me with Alec. That would be my choice at this moment with the information that I have. Of course, the fact that Alec is basically discovering a quarterback on the waiver wire right now is something that I really love to see. I'll take my chances on a team like that. Also, I know that, I just want to get one of the more feisty teams out of the way. He's got a bunch of stars, get them out of the way. Don't want to see them later on. Alex got a lot of things he has to solve on the waiver wire, and he only has $1 fab to do it. So I wonder if the entire league is watching and listening and seeing what they can do to help Alec out. Now let's transition to the sewers. In the sewers, our choice picks right now is Jaden at the number 9 seed and Mitch at the 10 seed. So that means that those 2 guys in those 2 order, Jaden goes first, Mitch goes second, can pick any one of the bottom 4 teams, including teams that are currently on bye. So that's Mike at 11, Cody at 12, Brandon at 13, and Nick at 14. Of course, some of these things can change depending on if Cody wins or loses. If not, Cody falls to the end, but it doesn't change how you pick. It's the same 4 people you're picking. So Mike is 11. Points per game, he's averaging 85 points per game. He's above the line in one category, tight end. So is everybody else. He's had the most injuries this year, 32 games missed with Connor, Eckler, and Harris. Top player is Herbert at QB 10, Kelsey at tight end 2. His lowest finish is a Sacco appearance in 2011. His best win was Cal in week 8. His worst loss with Cody in week 4. Why? Now, for this, I'm only going to do a why you should pick, no why you shouldn't, because these are bad teams. It's hard to do a why you shouldn't. So why you should pick Mike. 100-plus games aren't real. He's had 2 all season. And they came in back-to-back weeks in week 8 and week 9. Other than that, he hasn't crossed that magic line in a long fucking time. If it's been about 5 weeks since it's happened, there's no reason why it's going to happen. No reason why to believe it's going to happen now when his RB2 is Dingletary. So very good reason to think that you're not going to get a lot of points to worry about here. So Jaden, Mitch, somebody to consider. Next on this list is Cody. He's number 12. He's averaging 87 points a game. He's on a heater. Again, he's above the line. And crazy enough, tight end, 1 out of 6. Everyone's above the line in tight end, it seems like. He's had 16 games missed to injury. Mostly it's Burrow, Harrison, and Golden. His top players are Prescott at QB3, Pickens at wide receiver 2, Fannin at tight end 8, and the Jags D at 5. His lowest finish, we all know, he's a 4-time sacco. His best wins were against Dill in week 12, and his worst loss was against Nick in week 9. So why you should pick Cody? The reason why is it's just 3.5 guys. It's Dak, it's Pickens, and it's a combo. It's ETN, and it's a combo of the Jags or Fannin. Whoever shows up first that day. But it's really 3.5 guys you have to worry about. If you feel like you can't beat those 3 teams, then you yourself you deserve the sacco. Like, it's just 3.5 guys. So you probably should figure that one out. Brandon, number 13 seed. He's averaging 86 points per game. He's above the line in 2 categories, tight end and kicker. He's got 27 games missed with injuries. Mostly of that is Tyreek Hill. Top players are Pookie at RB7 and Dicker at kicker 4. His lowest finish, famously, 2-time sacco. Best wins, he beat Red in week 2. Worst losses, he lost to Mike in week 12. Why you should pick Brandon? You can out hustle him. We've seen it for the last month, but throughout this entire season, really, Brandon has taken a so-it-goes approach to managing his team. A little less namaste about life is this, and I'm just a grasshopper, and let things wash over me. This is very just indifferent, just whatever. Almost like a flick of the hand is just how he treats every week of just, okay, that's fine. Win, loss, fine. We've seen one of the biggest weeks of his season in which that was like setting up like week 12. I was trying to set up the juice of like, you can make this if you just use your money and you can pick up players and you can get ahead and like figure this out. And he didn't do anything. He literally just waited until waivers ran, picked up a player, and okay, that's how that goes, I guess. But he has 22 fab and he hasn't spent any of it since that time. So what is he saving for? I don't know. But his excuse is that he's running out of time. So if you're looking for an opponent that isn't going to surprise you, Brandon is that guy. He's got 100 points on the season, and he has 200-point games on the season, and that was 6 weeks ago. So I think giving Brandon the bye is like a vacation for him at this point. So maybe to torture him, you should pick him and just have him have to play 3 more weeks instead of 2. And then lastly, we have Nick. 80 points per game, above the line in 1 category, tight end. What a surprise. 24 games missed. Top players are Caleb at QB7, Cook at RB6, and Bowers at tight end 4. His lowest finish was, it's his first year, but he's not off to a great start. He's the 14 seed. His best win was against Red in week 3. His worst loss was Brandon in week 4. Why you should. This team is just bad. It's just bad. The first 3 weeks of the season were a high watermark for the team. He had 3 100-plus games right off the bat, back to back to back. And he had a case for a great season to be made. However, if you remove the first 3 weeks, Nick is averaging 73 points a game. That means after those first 3, 73 points a game for the rest of the season. The last time he had scoring like that was like pre-sleeper, like 2017 era scoring, where we had rounded numbers that would roll you down or roll you up. And he's had 100-plus game since that point. He's also won exactly 2 times since week 3. Since that same point of 100-point games. That's a 2-9 record to close out the year. Mike lost his entire running back core in that same span and still managed a 5-6 record over that same 11-week record. So pretty bad. For a man who has also picked up wicks after a big game, this man is also a lost cause. He's just bad in that sense. Jaden Reed coming back? Nope, ignore that. Bears corners coming back? Nope, gotta start Dontavian Wicks. Wicks never having a good back-to-back game ever, like literally ever. Anytime he's had 10-plus games, the next game he never scores more than 4. The best outing he's ever had was 4.5 points, and that was in 2 years ago. But yet, here we go. Nick starting a player he picked up off the waiver wire, and he got exactly 0. Absolutely 0. Just like the decision tree of that, of like, I'm going to start Wicks after he had a great game, and then I'll just ignore all these other factors. I don't understand. So again, another reason why you should. Just bad bad record, bad decision making. It's the perfect combination of just bad decisions, bad players. No matter how you add up this equation, it's probably a win for you. So who's going to pick these players? Who's going to pick Nick, Brandon, Cody, or Mike? Our first pickup is Jaden. Jaden is the number 9 seed. I predict he picks Brandon, solely for the fact that there's going to be some discord, so to speak. I think that Jaden also has enough talent to not feel like he needs to be punished with a loss, and picking Brandon has like that, just kind of the extra juice on it. And to my point, it just makes Brandon play 3 more weeks instead of 2. So this is probably one of Jaden's best chances to avoid the Sacco as well, just because of the fact that I don't think Brandon is going to give a shit, to be honest. And then our next choice is Mitch, the number 10 seed. I know everyone's really sad about Mitch not being in the bye, but I think that Mitch is he's got an interesting choice here. I think he's going to choose Mike, the number 11 seed. Mitch, as a former rookie, I think is going to play more respect to the fact of Nick, though Nick is a juicy matchup to play. I think that this decision really looks like 2 things for Mitch. If he picks Mike, then he feels really confident and he really wants to honor the history of like, I was a rookie, you're a rookie, you must be punished, and really have to feel the pain and go down the Sacco path. That's what Mike represents. But if we see Mitch choose Nick, then we know in the back of our heads that Mitch is very afraid of the Sacco and he wants to get himself out. Not to say that Mike is an easy out, or Mike's team just kind of shows up occasionally. You never know. But out of all the teams that are available, I would try to avoid Cody just because he's on a heater. Brandon's already chosen. So, and then there's Nick. Like, Nick is an obvious choice here, but I think that Mitch just plays into the narrative more than anything else. So Mike feels like that choice. That's where Mike goes. And he goes to Mitch. So that means the final results are Jaden plays Brandon, Mitch plays Mike, which means Cody moves into the bye. Sorry, Cody. You're the number 12 seed with the bye, and Nick maintains a bye at the 14. So what that looks like in encapsulation is that's the playoff run. Obviously, these are my projections, my thoughts. A lot of things can change. Obviously, tonight is more information. The goal of this was just to get some information out for all of you to start considering it. We'll see what happens. Again, the ceremony tomorrow is going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific. So I'll send out a Zoom about 30 minutes before. Anyone wants to jump on before, they certainly can. We can chat and stuff like that. Goal is for everyone to be on, at least those 4 decision makers in the top and those 2 decision makers near the bottom. So really hope to see everyone join as much as you can. If you cannot, please reach out to someone proactively. Don't have us be texting and calling you while on the thing waiting for you to make a decision. But yeah, hope you all can think about this, consider it, and it'll change your life, I'm sure. But the playoffs are here. It's time. We'll make the final decisions next week. We'll make the final decisions tomorrow. Set it into stone, but something to think about, something to chew on. And guys, for the love of God, please just cut the IR shit out. If any of these teams that win a championship with these IR slots filled with absolute garbage, I'm gonna lose my mind. It's offensive. It's stupid. It's so stupid. Anyway, bye.